All right. Welcome to Unravel. Today we're going to be talking about how to map your nervous system. And the reason why we want to learn how to map our nervous system is so we can better understand where we're at, what that is like for us. So this way it makes us be able to fine tune our own awareness just a little bit more. So it's really easy to know if you're in an activated state, right? You know, if you're feeling anxious, you know, if you're like, overwhelmed or burned out, or if you're shut down and just want to stay in bed, right? Those are super easy to know when we're feeling it because they're the extremes. But it's those little moments before you tip into that all the way activation that sometimes can be really helpful cues to help you better know where your nervous system is at. And so that's really what we're going to be doing with this nervous system mapping. But before we get into all of that, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for those that are joining live. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your life to be here with me in this space, in this time together. That really does mean a lot to me, and I so appreciate you guys. Um, and for those that are watching the replay, I do appreciate you tuning in to listen and follow along on the replay as well. I wanted to have a way to be able to bring this to more people because I think this is such a helpful way of navigating the nervous system. So before we begin, I want to start with intentions, right? So everyone has their own intention on why they're showing up tonight, why you're here, why you're watching this, why you're interested in this, right? Everyone kind of is bringing their own thing into this as far as what your intention is. Um, and I just want to take a moment to pause and let that come to the surface for you. Let you kind of deepen your awareness of that even more. Like, what drew you to wanting to learn about this? Is there something specific that you have going on that you're wanting to navigate through? Is there something that specifically with the nervous system you're curious about, or just learning in general? If you're like me, I'm a serial student, so I'm taking all the classes all the time. So there's could be so many different reasons why you're here, just allowing yourself a little bit of space to let that come to the surface and really anchor that as your intention and recognizing that you're allowed to have that take up some space too. You know why you're here, and that is okay to ground in that. My intention for this workshop is to weave education and experience together for you so that you get a little bit of, that learning aspect of understanding the nervous system a little bit better, as well as being able to recognize your own unique expression of it, because that's really where the magic happens, right? You can learn about the nervous system all day long, but unless you understand how it's communicating within your body, it's not going to matter. So we all know we have nervous systems, right? Like that's the little alien control center within us that is controlling everything, our mood, our emotions, what we're sensing, all of that. But the language of our nervous system is how we really begin to tap in and communicate within our bodies and being able to shift what we're feeling, being able to shift how we're feeling. And I do want to take a moment to pause here and say, even through what you're learning today, from a standpoint of a person that doesn't have any specific mental health conditions, this is fantastic work. For those that have any kind of mental health conditions, this is going to be something that is a little bit more challenging, right? Whenever we have something that alters, something with our brain chemistry and how our brain is working in correlation with our nervous system, it's going to make these practices a little bit more difficult. So I just want to put that out there as well, because it's not fair to make it seem like somatic practices are easy for everybody, because it's just simply not true, right? Just like some people can meditate super easy and other people couldn't meditate to save their life, right? Like we have to recognize that there's differences in people. And I think it's so important to always kind of let that be there and and recognize that and honor that too. If you deal with anxiety, if you deal with depression, if you deal with PTSD, if you deal with ADHD, if you are dealing with bipolar disorder, like any one of these things, trauma, chronic trauma, long-standing trauma, right? There are so many things that can make this more difficult. So I just want to let that be known and put that out there, because I know how invalidating and insensitive it can be when people talk about these somatic practices as these simple, easy things to do. And then you're like, yeah, but I can't do those because I don't have access to that, right? So I think it's always important to remember that we're all at different places and stages, and that is okay. And we hold space for that too. But these are practices. And I encourage you, even if you have any one of those or a multitude of those, these are practices. And with practice, it does allow it to become a little easier, right? And so the the span of how it's easier really is up to the individual person. But there is that sense of these are things you can practice. These are things that as you practice, it builds on itself and becomes easier to do. So part of this is because we have neuroplasticity, right? We have the capability of thinking different. For some people, super easy. For other people, it's a challenge. I am one that it's a challenge. And so I enjoy these practices because it does help me create those new neural pathways to see things different, to experience things different. And that is a game changer. So just know, like, you're not alone. I have a myriad of different mental health conditions as well. So I'll be completely transparent, PTSD, CPTSD, however you want to name it. That a lot of people don't use the C anymore. ADHD, anxiety disorder, right? So I have these issues that can sometimes make some of these practices a little bit more difficult. But when you stick with it, when you keep going, you'll find that it starts to become a little easier. So if you find that it's difficult to start with, it's okay. When we get into the practices, you'll understand even more, because sometimes it's just the way the practice is tailored that can be difficult for your unique position, right? So a lot of times it's just having to navigate a way to move into the practice that feels good for you. So that was a lot all of a sudden, all at once, and I wasn't even supposed to go there yet, but there we went. All right. I want to take a few moments to ground and let us presence ourselves here in this space together, and prepare for this journey together, right? So, like I said, we're going to do a little education first. So we'll be learning about the nervous system, polyvagal theory aspect, and understanding the different states of the nervous system. And then we're going to get into our experience, our practice, and then we're going to do a integration practice after that to kind of make sure it's well integrated and that you're feeling good after the practice. So I always like people to leave feeling better. So we're going to make sure that that happens. All right, so take a few moments, and you're sitting down, just let your feet kind of touch the ground if you can. If you're short, maybe scooting up to the edge of your chair so you can reach. It's a problem sometimes. But just allowing the feet to make contact with the ground beneath you. And I invite you, if you feel safe, if you feel okay, maybe closing the eyes and letting yourself really bring your awareness down to your feet, and noticing the places where your feet is meeting the floor beneath you. And then maybe noticing your spine and following the spine up the back, all the way up into the neck, and then into the head. And just allowing yourself to take in that space of the floor beneath you, beneath your feet, and feeling that awareness traveling up the legs, into the spine, and all the way up the back and into the head. Just coming into the awareness of the body. And now following your breath, let's exhale and inhale, noticing the places where the breath travels into the body. And as you exhale, open the eyes and follow the breath out into the space around you, and allow your eyes to stay open for a moment. And just take in your surroundings, taking a moment to really orient to the space that you're in. I want you to feel really good, really safe in the space that you're in. So maybe noticing 3 things in your space, whether it's 3 different colors or 3 different shapes, just finding 3 different things in your space. And now come back to the breath and following the breath into the body as you inhale. And allowing the exhale to roll out. And perhaps coming behind closed eyes again as you inhale. Allow yourself to bring your awareness to the heart and perhaps holding your hands at your heart, helping to draw your awareness into that heart space, and see if you can feel as though you are breathing through the heart. Just expanding that energy that is you, helping you anchor and ground and center here to your own heart energy. Allowing yourself to simply be in this moment, letting go of everything outside this space so you can be here now. Mm. And when you're ready, opening the eyes back up and coming back to the space. Now that we're a little more anchored, we can dive into some of this, some of the more heady part of this. So take a moment though and notice how that practice landed in your system. Just a quick little check-in practice that just helps to anchor and center and get you prepared, helps to get you more present. Just kind of allow yourself to notice that shift already. And we're going to start with a little brief teaching on polyvagal theory, and this is going to be a more simplified overview of it, so we're not getting into the deep depths of it, but enough for you to be able to understand and be able to recognize the different states within yourself. So the first one we're going to talk about is ventral vagal. And we're going to talk about this one first because we should be in that state right now. We just did a little practice that helps to regulate the nervous system, which is why you feel that little shift of maybe breathing a little easier, feeling a little more grounded, feeling a little more centered, right? That's that ventral vagal state. This is a state that is often referred to as social engagement state because in this state, it's more easy to be socially engaged. And it's also that state where we feel a sense of safety and connection. So this practice creates a softening into what's called that ventral vagal state. And this is what that regulation feels like, right? It's like, okay, I'm good. I can just chill, right? That sounds like for me. I feel very chill, which is abnormal for me because usually I'm very up here, right? I'm always on the go, always going. But I carry a sense of peace with me that everyone loves. But really, it's like, and then when I do this, it's like, oh, now I get to feel the calm too. I don't get to just create calm for everybody else that comes to me for sessions. So this is a really great place to come to when you know you need to be ready for the day ahead. But I also want to share that we're not meant to stay regulated like a robot, right? Like we're supposed to fluctuate, we're supposed to have the ups and downs. Like that's what makes us human, and that is normal, right? We don't want to be at this steady, like, always in that place. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what this practice or this work is about. We want to feel the feelings, and we want to feel the emotions, and we want to feel that ebb and flow and that wave, right? And so the regulated state has that up and down, yet still considered within that regulation, right? We're able to regulate that up into calm. We're able to regulate that down back into peace, right? So we're looking at this from a place of we have this point to this point, right? We'll say this window of space here is that space that is your window of resiliency, right? This is your capacity to deal with stress, to deal with life, to deal with all of the things, right? And if you stay within this space, you're good. Like you're not tipping into anxiety, panic attacks or overwhelm, and you're not, wrapped up in bed, not wanting to get up, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to participate in life, right? You're good. You're in that up and down. You might get a little but then you're able to calm. You might be like, I don't want to do today, but then get back to that place of being able to get mobile, right? So that is your window of tolerance, and that is your capacity for resiliency. That is your ventral vagal state, right? So imagine that state is the middle space of a ladder. And so the next rung up here is going to be that sympathetic state. And so that sympathetic state is up above. So when you're in your regulated state and something happens and you're like getting more anxious, more keyed up, more overwhelmed, right? And you're like, oh, and then your shirt gets snagged on the door, you spill your coffee, you're running late, like all the things that are even super stupid and simple. But because you're already up here, it's now tipping you over, and now you're completely overwhelmed. You're super stressed out. You're just like done with the day already, fuming, just shaking, and you don't want to continue, right? That is that sympathetic activation. It was too much. It sent you over the top. You're no longer able to regulate. You're having that moment of meltdown, of really like going full blown into an anxiety attack or a panic attack or into overwhelm, and like crying, whatever that looks like for you. And you went past your window of tolerance, right? Like, because you feel it and it, because it was too much. And so that is going to be your sympathetic activation state, okay? So this is also called like the fight or flight state, right? And this is when the heart rate increases, when you start breathing shallow and quicker, and you can feel a tightening in your muscles. And it's all in preparation, right? This is the way the nervous system helps us survive life. The nervous system is like, oh, something's happening, got to get ready to deal with it. Let's go into fight or flight mode. And so that increased heart rate and breath go together, right? So that shallow, shorter breath increases the heart rate. It all works together in preparation because it's trying to get blood to the limbs to prepare them so that you can flee or fight, right? So it's increasing the blood flow in the body, is getting the muscles ready to go. So the muscles are going to start holding tight. And in those moments, you can notice where you start feeling that tightness. And that can also begin to tell you where you're holding on to that, where that becomes some chronic tension if this is something you deal with a lot, right? So this is going to be where you start feeling and noticing the physical aspects of when you're staying in a sympathetic state or you're teetering too high up and you're crossing over into that sympathetic state too much, right? You hold on to that tension in the muscles. Your muscles have a hard time relaxing. You have a hard time relaxing, right? Like you can't let it go. And even when you're trying to relax, you find that you can't. You find that like your shoulders are still up to your ears, right? They don't, you can't get them to drop down. And you could be like, oh, yeah, they're dropped down, but you're really just tightening the back of your neck back up because the muscles won't separate, right? I see this in people, so I know that this happens. Yeah. And then what do people do a lot? And this is going to be a little side tangent here, just because as a body worker, I can't have you all messing your necks up more. What do people do when they're tight? They're trying to stretch it out, right? They're like, oh yeah, let me stretch that out. Don't do that. Don't do that because you make it worse. You make it worse because when something's already tight and when it's chronic tension and you stretch it, it causes a stretch reflex response. So it creates rebound tension in the muscle. And it's so that the muscle can protect itself from being torn. And so what people don't realize is when you're working with an area that's been chronically tense and tight and you stretch it, that response is going to engage and it causes even more broad tension to occur in that area. So you might feel a little relief initially, like stretching and like, oh yeah, let me separate that. And then all of a sudden it comes back with a vengeance. Give it like 15 minutes and you're gonna be like, oh my God, it's so tight. Let me stretch it again, right? And you're going to keep creating that cycle. So please don't stretch. Stop stretching. Stretching is not always the answer. I don't care what they used to tell you. That is not true. It will make that aspect worse. Now, if you just worked out and your muscles are tight because you just worked them out, yes, stretch. That is when you stretch, but not when it's chronic tension. Your body is responding different. You have to work with it different. And so what do you do instead? You want to actually contract into the tension. You want to tighten it more, right? Now you're re-engaging the muscle and brain connection, contracting it up, and then slowly releasing it back down. And it's helping to re-engage that neuromuscular connection for that brain and muscle to communicate together, for it to recognize, oh, I was holding it a little tighter than I needed to. I can actually let that go a little bit more. And so we do that contract, relax a couple times. And it's a contract up. And you can do it with me if you want. Take a shoulder, pick a shoulder, squeeze it up to your ear. And keep breathing while you're squeezing. But you want to squeeze, actively squeeze that muscle. And I like to do it for like 2 or 3 breaths, right? And then as you exhale, it's a slow, very slow release. Let it move slow. If you notice that it tries to skip or jump, that's a sign of sensory motor amnesia. And that occurs when it is a chronically tight muscle because the brain literally forgets the different stages of contractile tension in the muscle. And so it has to be re-engaged through that neuromuscular loop. And we can only access that when we do that slow release and re-engage the prefrontal cortex during that release of the muscle. So I know that's a lot of words that you probably don't care about, but basically tighten, contract, slow release, right? It's all you got to remember. If it's janky, if it's like skipping, if it's missing out, just know that the brain forgot that it can relax more. And so you're just reteaching it to relax that muscle and how much looser that muscle can be. So you're retraining your brain muscle connection to be like, oh no, I want it to be down here because that's where it goes, right? And so when you have muscles that are over tightened from being in that sympathetic state, from being in that active state, that is more of the work you want to do to relax and release that tension, because that is actually working and communicating with the nervous system in the way that you need to communicate with it to get the actual results that you want. So it's a little extra bonus for you guys. I know I've had videos out there, little video shorts before that was talking about that, but now you're hearing it again because so many people stretch and we don't want to do that in this case. So why do we get into that sympathetic state in the beginning, in the first place, right? This often occurs when things are happening and it's too much and it's too fast and we can't process it all. And so we get tripped into this activated state that we then have to, like, we go through our process, whatever that process is, our freak out, our meltdown, our anxiety attack, whatever that looks like. And then typically after that, we're like back to that kind of regulated state again, right? And so what we're aiming to do with this is beginning to recognize when we're at that high point of our window of tolerance before we tip into that sympathetic state, so that we don't have to tip all the way into that sympathetic state, right? We want to catch it before it gets there. So now we've covered that middle rung of the ladder, the ventral vagal, that regulated state. We've covered the sympathetic when you go higher up, right? So now we got to look at what happens when you go down. That's going to be the dorsal vagal. That is the shutdown. That is the collapse. That is that immobilization, the freeze, right? And so in the freeze, that is when we kind of experience more of those depressed kind of feelings of hopelessness and no motivation, numb to life, like you're just going through the motions, foggy headed, disconnected, even some difficulty taking care of basic needs, right? We really begin to like kind of cocoon ourselves. We don't want to deal with anything. Everything feels like too much. We just kind of get swallowed whole into that like little cocoon that we want to be in. So dorsal vagal shutdown, right? This is going to be that place that we go to when we burn out to the point of exhaustion, right? It's going to be that place we go to when we experience a freeze. And so sometimes that freeze comes along because things got to be too much and we went up here and then we dropped to that freeze, right? We got too activated and the body said, can't do anymore. Boop, gonna bottom you out. And now you're experiencing that freeze, which can look like a functional freeze. It doesn't have to be a freeze like, you're not moving, like we're playing freeze tag, but it can be that it's like that freeze where it's like you can't do anything to really move yourself forward out of the situation. Right. And that could also be avoidant behavior patterns that keep you from moving forward out of the situation. Right. There's so much wrapped around that freeze response that I think is still being unraveled for a lot of people, myself included, because functional freeze is definitely a real thing. And when I started learning about functional freeze, I was like, oh, snap. Okay. So there is a lot to unpack when it comes to understanding these. So once again, this is a very simplified version just to get a better understanding of the polyvagal theory. So when we're in that dorsal vagal shutdown, right, we can't just simply regulate back into regulation. We can't just anchor and ground and do some breathing and get back to regulation, because unfortunately, our nervous system doesn't work that way. If anything, when we slow our breath down and we try to like get to that peaceful place inside, it creates more shutdown, right? And a lot of people don't realize when you're in a freeze state, you don't want to be doing those practices. Those are not the practices to get you out of it. You want to actually do something that activates you. You need to come into that activation in order to regulate. So you need to have something that pulls you up out of that shutdown and into activation. And that's why they always tell people that are dealing with depression to exercise, right? That mobilization helps to start to change some of the chemistry and the messages that is happening in the nervous system. So we want to move. And that is going to be how we come out of that free state, right? And then there's the fawning, which a fawn and actually recently learned in my class, I'm in another another certification class. And I love the teachers that I have in this class. And so Dr. Stephen Porges is the one that developed the polyvagal theory, and he's actually about to drop another medical research paper that is also naming appeasement. So it'll be fawn and appeasement, and appeasement is being looked at as being its own separate nervous system state. And this brings me so much joy and happiness because I think it needs to be recognized as its own state because it's not quite the same as fawn. And appeasement is more along the lines of when you have experienced, say, domestic violence, right? You have been conditioned in that environment to react from a place of appeasement. You're trying to make sure that everything is okay all of the time. And so you're learning to appease and respond to everyone else around you, right? So to me, this is huge that this is coming. And I kind of have the inside scoop because my classes involve him. So I was so excited to hear about that. So that should be coming out and being published within the next 2 months, probably closer to a month and a half now. So I'm excited for that to drop because that's going to just open up so much more out there. And I think it's going to be incredible for those that are going through the trauma healing path from domestic violence or any type of physical abuse, because that is going to really set the stage for approaching it a little different. And so I'm excited about that as a domestic violence survivor myself. So I can't wait to see what he publishes with that. We didn't get to have any extra insight other than that to that, but I can't wait to see what comes out about that. But fawn and appeasement do not fall into one single category of this ventral vagal, sympathetic, or dorsal vagal. It flows. It's blended. And so that's the thing that I also want to bring to the surface is that we do have blended states. It is not a black and white, you're either in this state or you're in this state or you're in this state. We have blended states, right? So those blended states are going to be what fawn and appeasement typically function in, and as well as functional freeze can also be a blended state, right? So there's a couple different ways, and even if you don't want to categorize any particular one, you in any given moment can be experiencing a blended state. So I feel like that's super important to put out there as well, because I think that there's um, just some misinformation out there, or the way that it's described isn't quite clear enough to know that, yeah, that's you can have blended states of this too. You can be feeling into activation and also be somewhat regulated. You can feel into activation and also be in a shutdown, right? You can have both of these at once. And I'm sure if you really dig deep, you could probably think of a time where that is true for you. So today, though, I want to just name the three main ones and picturing it as a ladder so that you have that good visualization of, you've got that center, which is your centered state of ventral vagal, you've got that sympathetic, and you've got that shutdown, right? And so now you understand when you're here, like this is the center, right? If you're activated, you got to bring it down. If you're shut down, you got to bring it up, right? So that's the easy way to keep that kind of ingrained in your mind so that now that we're going to be mapping your nervous system, what practice or what things you need to do to help you in those states. So next we're going to get into the actual practice. So this is where you really might want a pen or a paper handy to just kind of be able to jot down notes as you want to about your specific states, because this is for you. This is to help you. And That's what tonight is all about. So my voice is still not happy with me talking a lot. I apologize. I'm gonna have to take a drink. All right. So we're gonna come back to grounding a little bit more because that was a lot. And I could go on forever because my nerdy little heart has just loved all of this stuff, learning all of this stuff. Um, but I want us to come back and I want us to ground first, right? We want to start from a place of being centered. And I also want to share that with this practice, we're not looking for you to find your most horrible thing ever to feel into. We don't do that. So I want you to just know that when I say think of something that, makes you tip into the activation, I'm not saying go to the thing that sends your anxiety through the roof. I mean, what is something that gives you like maybe a level 4 out of 10, right? You just want to feel into it. You don't want to be in it. Okay. So let me just clarify that and set that stage so it's very clear. We're not looking for tens tonight. Okay. Um, But we're going to start grounding first. And I want you to know too that this practice is going to be, in fact, yeah, let me describe it a little bit first so that you know what to expect, because I feel like that helps you to feel a little bit more prepared and a little bit more safe as we move through the practice. So with this practice, what we do is first we'll start feeling into that grounded sense again. We'll come back into a nice, good ventral vagal state, really grounding and centering again and feeling connected back to ourselves. And then we're going to move into just kind of touching into that activated state, right? We want to come into feeling just something that gets us to feel that and being able to notice the changes and sensations that we're experiencing, right? And then we'll feel into the dorsal vagal, that shutdown state, and what that is like for you and the things that you notice as you shift into that. And then we'll end coming back to that ventral vagal state, right? So just know that you're going to be ending on a nice, good note, that this practice is just meant for you to just kind of touch into. In somatics, we use a term called titration. And titration is we kind of like touch a toe in and then we come back. And we touch a toe in and then we come back, right? So it creates this practice of, oh, it's safe for me to feel into this because I can come back here, right? And we do that because we're not feeling into that 10, right? We're feeling into like a 4. What's something that's maybe at a level of a 4 that I can just kind of touch into and then come back, right? So that is the safety net of this practice. And I'm going to guide you first. So our ventral vagal practice first is different from the one that we started this call on. So it's going to be a little bit different of a practice that's going to be easier for you to ground back to as we shift between states, okay? So let's get started. Getting comfortable in your chair. I want you to start by first gazing around your space. And I want you to find something in your space that makes you feel good. Just looking around your room. What do you see that brings like a feeling of joy or a sense of comfort or makes you feel loved? Something that gives you a feel-good feeling. Did you find something? All right. Then I want you to find something near you that you can touch that feels good to you. Maybe it's a fuzzy blanket, or maybe it's the inside of your sweatshirt, or maybe it's the cool leather of your chair, right? Maybe, um, I don't know. Maybe it's a pet. Something that you can feel, that you can touch, that has something that connects you to a feeling good feeling. Okay. And then I want you to notice, and you might have to close your eyes to notice a little bit deeper, but is there any smells around you that you can tune into if you pay attention? Where you're like, yes, I like that smell. And if not, it's okay. And then I want you to take a moment to visualize um, any image, any place that you can visualize that makes you feel good. And just noticing and knowing what that is for you. These things, these are your anchors. Okay. So as we move through this practice and touch into things, you can come back to any one of these anchors around you at any time in the safety of your space. Right. So if you're touching into something and you're like, oh, this is feeling like a little too much, come back to one of your anchors at any time. Feel whatever texture it was that you were feeling that felt good. Look at whatever was bringing you joy when you looked at it and come back to that. Visualize that place, right? Any one of those anchors you can do to help you kind of come back to that feeling. Okay. So now we're going to move into that activation state. So, can you conjure up something in your mind that is like that level 4 activation for you, where you start feeling that anxiety, that anxiousness, that heat, or that starts to rise up in your body? Just call to mind the moment or the trigger and just kind of let yourself be aware of the change and sensation and feeling. And you can let your eyes be closed if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. Really let yourself tune in as you feel into that, the sensations and how it begins to change in the body. What do you begin to notice? Is there a shift in how you're feeling? Is there a tightening? Where's the tightening? Do you feel like it moves to one particular area? And if you feel into that a little bit more, do you notice a color associated with this feeling? Just let yourself be curious. And now, as you're feeling this feeling, I want you to complete these sentences. In this moment, feeling this, I am. How would you describe it? What is that word? I am. And then I feel. What do you feel? And the world is. How does the world feel to you when you're in this state? Mm. And it'll take a moment to come back to your anchors, come back to the thing in your room that you like to look at, or that feeling, that texture. Come back to being aware that you don't have to stay in that feeling, that you get to come back and anchor back into that nice, feel good feeling, tuning into those things around you. And take a moment, if you didn't do it during the practice, if you want to jot down what came through, you can. Because these are the things that you're going to want to know. These are the things that help you to connect more to your own inner truth in those moments. And that guides you to what it is you need in those moments. But it's not very often we get to slow down when we're actually in that life experience of it to really notice these subtle changes that start to happen. And so, one of the beautiful things about somatics is it really makes us slow way down, which is really unusual for my brain, but it has such a great impact. So if you need to like shake it out, to shake a little bit more off, absolutely do that, right? If you felt that tension come back, we can squeeze it out, right? We squeeze it out, we don't stretch it out. And the next, if you need to come back to feeling that feel good texture again, or looking at that thing that makes you happy, or visualizing that place that brings you joy. Yeah, squeezing your fur baby. Not too much though, not too much. We can come back to that centered place a little bit more. And now we're going to feel into that dorsal vagal, that shut down place. So I don't know about you, but this one to me, I don't like feeling into this one as much. You know, the activation is so much easier to feel into. I don't mind it as much, right? This one, like it almost kind of hurts to want to like take yourself down to that place, at least for myself anyway. Um, but also knowing like I've been there plenty of times. So just know like if you have like that feeling of I don't really want to, like there's that resistance, it's okay. You don't have to do these practices. You can just listen if you don't feel like now is the time for you to do it too. So always maintain that awareness of self. But we're again only going to think of something that is like a level 4. We're not going down to the deep, dark depths of the pit, right? We're just going to level 4. We just want to think of something that was a small moment where you can recall you felt that freeze, where you felt that shut down, right? You felt yourself shrink and close up. And if you've got to close your eyes and bring yourself into a moment where you felt that just to a level 4, just kind of let that come on board for a minute and just notice how it begins to shift and change. Again, just thinking about a time when you felt that freeze. You just kind of tense up and froze. Perhaps you just kind of shut down, didn't want to do anything, closed off. And as you begin to feel into that, notice the subtle changes that start to happen in the body, those sensations that you begin to feel. And what does that shutdown feel like? What do you notice? Where do you feel it at in the body? Does it go to a particular area? Would you describe the sensation? Do you notice a color associated with this state? I'm taking a moment to complete these sentences. Notice how you feel. I am. What are you feeling? How would you describe that in this state? I am. I feel. How would you describe that for this state? I feel. And the world is. How does the world feel when you're in this state? Really, you've got those. I can come back into feeling those anchors again, coming back to the feel good. The feel good textures, the feel good items, the feel good place you can visualize. Or perhaps it's even a feel good color. Whatever helps you to feel good. Wrangling up a fur baby. Whatever helps you feel good. And taking a moment to jot down what you need to from that experience, recognizing the way that that was different than the activation, how it felt different, the sensations that were different, how you completed the sentences of I am, I feel, the world is. And just allow yourself a few moments to jot that down. Now for the fun one. Coming back to a nice, good ventral vagal state more fully. We're going to come back to closing the eyes and feeling into that feel good visualization, a feel good place, a feel good color, whatever that might be for you. Perhaps if you don't have a texture near you, that is something you can conjure in your mind and be like, like I love the feel of this fur, or I love the feel of, velvet, right? Thinking of something in the mind. Perhaps you like the feeling of the sand between your toes walking on the beach. Just kind of creating that visualization for yourself of things that feel good. Allowing the breath to flow freely in the body. And letting yourself experience the expansiveness of the breath in the body. And bringing your awareness into that heart space, breathing in and out from the heart, feeling that center grow and expand with each breath. And in this state, begin to notice the difference in sensations. How does your body feel when you're focusing and coming back to this state? What do you notice begins to become different? And from this place, can you finish the sentences? I am. I feel. And the world is. And just noticing from this place how it all feels different. And as you're ready, opening your eyes and allowing yourself to jot that down if you need to. I know for me, in that place, like, I feel like everything slows down, but in a good way. Like I get to be more present. Knowing these cues about yourself and about these states, how it feels for you, it can allow you to be more present with your own inner truth and what you're feeling at the time, right? So a lot of times we start to feel into things and it's like we want to disconnect from that. We don't want to feel it. We don't want to recognize it or own it. We just kind of want to like deny or resist or try to sidestep. It doesn't really work that way, right? It's still there. It's still happening in the body, right? So this practice helps to bring you back to that place of recognizing, oh, I know this feeling, and I know what this feeling is telling me. So it gives you that little bit of preparation, of recognition and remembrance that, like, oh, yeah, I can slow down and feel this, and it's safe, it's okay. I can actually let myself feel this. And I now know that I have a practice I can come back to help kind of ground myself a little bit more. How can I start anchoring in a sense of safety into my system? How can I find something that brings me back to a feel-good feeling in this moment to help me kind of balance, right? That's kind of the point of this practice is to be able to recognize like, oh, I can touch into this and I can come back. And so when you begin to catch yourself, right? And that's really the key. When you begin to catch when you're resonating up here and it's stupid little things, right? Now, there's absolutely times when we have to be in an activated state to respond correctly to our life environment and circumstances. But when you snag your shirt on the doorknob and instead of that tipping you over, right? And you feel that in your system, you feel that And you're like, ah, you know. And so now you're starting the day from that place. Now you can come back and be like, I don't want to start my day from that place. And I know this feeling. I know that keyed up and everything is like sucked in and up, right? Like that's what it feels like. And so how can I bring it down? Oh, wait, I know how I can bring it down. Let me come back to resourcing myself. What is something that makes me feel good? That I can plug into right now, that I can start trying to tune into more than this feeling that I'm feeling right now to help kind of unwind that, unravel that, right? And so that's what we're doing with this. And this isn't to kind of scapegoat the feelings that we're feeling, but rather the recognition that sometimes these little things, as they keep going and bottling up and tipping us over, are these little things that really don't need to send us into that state. And so it's not like we're neglecting any deep-seated trauma in this moment by trying to ignore the realness of our feelings, but rather we're actually acknowledging the realness of our feelings in the moment by allowing us to slow down and recognize the sensations that are changing, what is rising up, where we're going, what our nervous system is telling us, and then being able to recognize, is this the reality of what I need for this situation right here, right now? Or is this reaction a pattern in the nervous system that is jumping on board because I've tipped myself over this space and then this is now taking over, right? Because let me tell you, we run patterns from childhood on a regular basis. And those patterns just take right on over and start dictating what you're doing, and it perpetuates that cycle. So when you feel like you have those times when things happen and then like you respond the same way or in basically the same way, like you're getting that same response, you're like, why do I keep having the same kind of reaction to this thing over and over again? Right? It's showing up in different ways, but the response is still the same. That reaction is still the same, right? Because it's a nervous system pattern that's coming up that starts taking over, right? You tipped into that activated state and the nervous system says, I got this, I'll help you survive because I learned this from before, from this other situation way over here. And here's the kicker, guys. Here's the kicker. It doesn't even have to be from your life experience. Your nervous system will also generate ideas on how to help keep you alive from things you've watched on TV because your brain doesn't know that it wasn't a real thing. So, those shows you watch also play in the back of the mind to draw knowledge from to help in situations, right? Which is really wild because I don't know about you, but some of the things I watch, I don't know that I wanted to be pulling it from that. Right? So, just remembering like this is all just a patterned response that is really coming through the body and trying to express itself. Like if there's one thing, let me see, I wrote down a quote today from my teacher because I thought it was just absolutely amazing. See if I can find it real quick. So much I wrote today. Um, Nope. I don't know where I wrote it at. Right, never mind. I don't know where I wrote it at. So, anyways, he was he was talking about how we get this overwhelming tightness and sensation where everything stays tight and it can't relax and we get stuck like that and those triggers keep coming up and we keep having that same response. How to write it? No, I wrote it down. No, I wrote it down. Just not seeing it. A lot of the basis for somatics is the fulfillment of an impulse, right? So when you think about how things are coming on board and we have these patterns, and whether those patterns are coming from childhood lived experience, whether it's coming from experiences because your brain is hanging on to a memory from something it saw on TV or something it saw in real life that happened, any of those things, right? Your brain just holds it. Doesn't care if it was a real or a fictional story. It doesn't care if it was a novel you read or real life, right? It's still there. It's still knowledge and experience that it pulls upon. But when we don't fulfill that inner desire of the reaction that wants to happen, because we are reactionary creatures. Um, I still can't find where the heck I wrote it down, and maybe I skipped writing that down, but it really stuck out to me because he was talking about how we as humans, like, we're reaction based because it's all running through our nervous system. Our nervous system is our primary function of how we survive. It's constantly taking in information, it's constantly reading the environment. We don't have to have any awareness of it doing it. It's automatic, right? And so any given moment, our nervous system is reading the temperature of the room, reading any shifts or changes in the electrical charge of the space, right? That's how we get those heebie-jeebie feelings, reading the electrical charge of the space, right? Like that cues us into things. It's sensing air movement, right? Like it's sensing all these things. On top of that, we've got the aspect of, our visual cues. Our eyes are taking in the environment, also sending signals into the nervous system, letting the nervous system know what we're seeing, right? And all of that's getting pieced together every single second. And it's informing the body of what it needs to be doing. Right? Break it down into motion and movement. You want to do something. All of those things that have to occur in the body without you thinking about it, that transfers your initial desire of wanting to move your hand and your hand actually moving, right? Like all of this information and communication is happening in the body, and you don't have to be aware of it. But that's our nervous system is constantly on. It is constantly on reading the environment. Now you take into consideration something happens, right? That triggering moment that is tipping you out of that regulated state. There is an impulse in that reactionary state, something that you want to do. And if you don't get to act on that impulse, there is a bracing. And that bracing will occur when you don't want it to go any further. And so that bracing will either come on board as shutdown, or it'll be like an avoidance, right? It'll be like a tightening, right? Or an escaping, like you're just gonna like stick your head in the sand, not gonna deal with it, gonna divert attention to something else, right? Bracing can show up in a lot of ways. So then what happens? Society teaches us to ignore, to push through, to keep going, right? Sure, you're overwhelmed and having a panic attack. You can still come to work though, right? Like, oh, you can still do all the things you need to do. It's fine. Um, and so we're forced to have to keep going, and we don't get to actually take the time to process. And so the bracing can look like all of these other ways we begin to deal with that internalized state of what's happening. And then we never get the fulfillment of that. And so it becomes this pattern. Your nervous system says, Oh, hey, I remember this. This helped you survive before, so we're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to ignore it. We're just going to avoid it. We're just going to push through it, right? And so it becomes the same cycle. And so when we slow down and we begin to feel those sensations that begin to change, the way that it starts to show up, how it's communicating to us, and then we're able to say, okay, I feel this leading into here. Like I know I'm already at the upper end of my ventral vagal space, right? And I know it's not going to take a whole lot to get me over the top of that. So how can I start to help myself? Oh, I can start to slow down now. If I can get myself when I'm at just the upper end of my regulated state where I know like I'm beginning to feel the little flutters of stress, I'm beginning to feel the little flutters of overwhelm, I'm beginning to feel the little pangs of anxiety, right? I can then start activating those grounding practices of the ventral vagal state and say, hey, I know I can pause and give myself 2 minutes to just breathe and be conscious with my breath. I can focus my attention as I'm sitting at my desk and I have work to do. And I can just bring my attention down to my feet, my awareness down to my feet. And I can really focus on that grounding presence. While I'm sitting in this waiting room that's full of people, and I hate people and I hate being in crowds, and the space is feeling really small, I can bring my awareness down to my feet. And I can let myself start feeling into that grounding sensation and helping myself feel a little bit more comfortable in the space that I'm in. So these are just little ways we can begin to tap into this, but it takes those moments of awareness and recognizing where you're at and what you can do to help yourself, right? You're starting to feel that freeze coming on, right? Maybe you already went through the overwhelm and you didn't catch it. And now you're like going into that freeze, that shutdown, because it's been too much into the activation for too long. And now your system's exhausted. And it's like, yep, nope. We are bottoming out now. If you don't want to rest, I'm going to make you rest. Here we go. And then when we get into that exhausted state, like what does that feel like? What does that shutdown feel like? And knowing what that feels like and knowing like, oh yeah, it touched into that. And I know that that makes me feel like everything begins to close in. Like I feel claustrophobic in my own body. The world feels like it's too much out there and I don't want anything to do with it. Like I just want to disappear. Right? So if you know how that feels for you, then it becomes a little bit easier when you're in that space to be like, okay, I know these feelings because I actually turned towards it and I got to learn it. I got to be friends with it. I got to understand it. I got to approach it with a little more curiosity. And I know that's why I'm feeling this way. And so now from this place, I know that I can't just breathe or meditate because it's not going to be helpful. It's just going to make me shut down more. I need something that's going to activate me. What can I do to activate me? Oh, well, I can think about something that can activate me, right? Like you don't even have to do physical exercise. You can think about something that is activating. Just like we did in this practice, you can dip your toe into something that is activating and let that start generating some inner momentum for you. Right? And that can be enough that helps you kind of shift out of that shutdown state. So these are the types of practices that we do that we can do so much more of when we work with somatics and understanding the nervous system and communicating with the nervous system and how the nervous system is communicating with us and understanding this language that is happening within. But so often we just don't slow down enough to pay attention to that communication. And so we need we need these variations of states, right? We need them. It's not about not having them. You're going to experience them. It's not about not experiencing them, but it's about being able to recognize when it's really meant for what is happening and when it's becoming too much being stuck in that state. When perhaps exhaustion is normal and shutdown is normal because maybe you worked a double 12-hour shift, right? Maybe you have been constantly go, 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 and it was all just overwhelming and your system is needing to shut down, right? And you need that rest because you need to sleep. And so it's giving you that, right? And so sometimes these moments, like, yeah, they're natural, normal responses to what is actually happening around you. And it's part of your survival as a human being. And that's okay. But those moments when you're like, stupid things like this get me over the top, and I don't know why I let this happen. And then you start reeling about that, right? Those moments, those moments, that's what this is for. That's what this is for. Because you don't have to be stuck in that cycle of that emotional overwhelm that happens. Because that is all that emotional aspect that comes through when the nervous system is in that activation. And so this is all bringing it back down, helping you to make it a little bit easier to process some of that day-to-day life stuff that, you don't have to get all keyed up for. So, thinking about this practice and what you learned, what is the most surprising thing that you learned about those states? Have you slowed down before to really feel into them like that? Have you ever been curious about those states? Have you ever approached them with curiosity? Right? So, one of the benefits of this practice is it's a practice that allows you to be in that state of being the witness of what that state feels like. And so, oftentimes, when we're active in that state, we don't always have access to that inner witness because we're in the feeling of it, like we're really in it. So being able to access it from the place of the witness, the observer, allows you this other opportunity too, where even when you find yourself caught up in being in that state, can you come back to that place within you where you can see that state happening to you, through you, right? And so it lets you kind of like step back a little bit and you can begin with like, can I be curious about this? Right? Instead of getting wrapped up in the emotional aspect of it, can you come back to, can I be curious about this? What is this telling me right now? Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling in this moment? What is here for me? What wants to be unraveled? How can I really tune in just a little bit more? Where is this connected to my body? How does this sensation feel? Is there a color? Is there something that maybe this is connected to something in my past, right? And you can let yourself play with going a little deeper as you feel comfortable doing it. But approaching with curiosity helps you to shift into that observer, that witness space, right? Because then you're asking questions of it and you're not being that emotional person in it, right? So it creates just a slight difference. Take a few moments to just kind of come back to the breath. Taking a nice deep breath, sighing it out, shaking it out. There's a lot that we went through tonight, and just allowing yourself to come back to maybe a little bit of movement, And like the undulating spine movement is always a good one. You can go side to side, you can come front to back. That also helps to just kind of move energy out of the body if you feel like you've got some excess stuff in there, right? You can tap your feet on the floor, bringing that awareness to the bottom of the feet and letting your feet ground. And there's lots of different ways that we can come back to the body and just kind of come back to the self. And of course, continuing to journal about this experience, right? Like how has this shifted the way you begin to understand what you're going through, what you're navigating through, what these states look like for you? Because really, this is all about your ability to be able to help yourself in those moments. Like somatics is really a self practice, and it's so beneficial. Even if this is a difficult practice, it's still beneficial to practice. And so take a moment just to notice how you feel right now. Like how has this helped you? How have you shifted back into being maybe more present in the space? Maybe a little, I'm feeling a little bit more energy, and just noticing how you might be feeling. If you feel like there's maybe more breath available, if you feel a little bit more connected to yourself, if you feel like maybe you know yourself a little bit better, more connected to the truth of how you feel, maybe feel a little bit more seen in the feelings that you feel. But this is what happens when we remember how to listen to our body. Like this is what happens when we slow down and we let ourselves really listen. And, this is what I love to do. This is where everything is heading for me. So I do have a new um, program coming out, and I want to take just a few moments to share that before I um, open up the space for questions and sharing the experiences. I'm starting a Soulwise mentorship community. And so this is going to be a membership community where I share practices like this. We do weekly practices. We have time for one-on-one connection and just reflections and conversation. I'm going to be doing this over an app called Marco Polo. I really like the app because it gives you a chance to do video chats back and forth. And it's going to be a group setting, right? It's a mentorship community. And so this is going to be the place where, I know a lot of you are coming from my Soulwise community on Facebook, but this is going to be separate from that. This is a more intimate container where we have more one-on-one time together, more in-depth practices like this, and more connection throughout the week, as well as a private session with me every month. So that's all part of what you get in this space. And plus, you get the embodiment practices of actually having me help you go through it, right? The accountability of checking in and hey, you doing the practice? What are you doing? What you feeling? What you going through, right? It all helps to keep you kind of anchored in what you're moving through and keeps going on that unraveling path of coming back to your true self, right? So I just want to share with you that that is getting ready to open up. And for those of you on live, I'm inviting you with a special gift. So as a thank you for coming on live. So I will save that for you. But thank you, and I will let you know more when I post the replay of this video. I'll have a link posted below. So if you want to sign up, if you want to join, I'd love to have you in there because this is where I'm going to be spending most of my time is working with the somatic part because that is really where my heart is at because I know how much it's helped me over the last 5 or so years, and I really want to help other people find this place of peace within themselves too, because that is so needed in this world. So There we go. Thank you. And I will leave that link down below.